my presentation up? That's there. Good afternoon to all of you. And I cannot tell you what a great pleasure it is to be here and also to see such a wonderfully organized event. So I think first we should really compliment Mr. Shiv Kumar and his team at ICTACT and also Purushottam and his team at NASSCOM. So please give them a round of applause. I thought it's really well organized event. So is the presentation up? Oh, there it is. So I'm seeing something else here. Can I shut this down? Okay, wonderful. So I guess I got invited here to speak on skill development for entrepreneurs, and I kind of started questioning the very premise of trying to give skills to entrepreneurs, because in my view, entrepreneurship is a higher order skill. So I thought I'll just talk about some of the things that might be interesting to you. So I'm trying to put together a fairly sketchy outline. I call it a sketchy outline because it might be a messy outline also by the time we are done. But I'll keep it to the time limit of 5 or 6 minutes, so it'll be fairly quick. The first point I want to make is that a tsunami is coming, and it's not a real tsunami, not the one that we have experienced in the past. It's a tsunami of people that are going to come into the workforce. The second thing is the skills themselves are evolving, and we have to look at skills not as a static reference, but with the idea that it actually there's certain levels of skills that have to be incorporated into people over time, and it's an evolving process. There are also skills we always forget to talk about, which I want to mention. Some of them were discussed earlier today in some different ways, but I have some very simple ideas and concepts by which I have evaluated skills for people, which I think are interesting. And finally, the serious problem of aspiration. I think we as a country are gradually becoming very, very mono-focused in very, very simplistic view of getting a job in a big IT company doing IT services, things like that, which I really want to challenge. So the fact is, the tsunami is like this. By 2020, 10 million new graduates will enter the workforce every year. And just by contrast, in 2010, that number was 3 million. So we are actually looking at the most unprecedented expansion of college graduate seats in this country. And why is that? Because we are going to, by design, triple our capacity of college graduates in the next 10 years. As you probably, many of you know, that enrollment ratio at 12% is, what that means is 12% of people who should be in college are in college today. And we want to make that 30% at least, because that's the world median today. And by the time we get to 30%, the world would have moved to 40%, we'll still be behind, but it's better than where we are. So by all indications, MHRD is going to sit around and actually triple everything that we have. So for example, there'll be 8,000 engineering colleges with 80,000, close to 8 million seats. 8 lakh seats today will become close to 2.5 million seats in engineering. Maybe 2.2 million seats today in regular colleges will become 7.5. So you're looking at 10 million people coming into the workforce every year just by this single factor alone. Now, some of you may have heard of the National Skill Development Corporation, which estimates that 100 million workforce of college graduates will ultimately be in the system in the next 10, 15, 20 years, cumulatively. Now, we already agreed today that only 75% of people we're producing from colleges today are employable. So are we to expect by this extrapolation that 7.5 million people, new unemployable graduates, will enter the workforce every year by 2020, which is a very, very scary thought, because I don't think we ever want to contemplate 75 lakh graduates or 7.5 million graduates entering the workforce every year without the right employment skills. So the question is, who's going to solve that problem? So here's the point about higher order skills. I personally think that everybody that we produce, or maybe not everybody, but 80% or 90% of our output from colleges today, when we look at from industry perspective, these are people who essentially want to be employees. And the definition of an employee, I pulled these definitions from the Webster last night to say who's an employee. An employee, if you look at the bottom item I have, level 1, is somebody who works for another person or another entity for wages or salary. I think if you look at a dream state, we all want to work in this country today, young people. We want to work in large numbers for big companies with big brands with good salaries. And that's an aspiration that seems to be dominating the entire thought process. But a higher order skill is professional, being a professional. I don't know how many people today come out of college saying, I want to be a professional. They want to be employees, but do we want to be professionals? And who is a professional? Somebody who conforms to a basic technical and ethical standard of a profession. The key word there is standard. A professional is ashamed if they feel they have violated a standard of quality. So just like employee, the key word is salary. In professional, the key word is standard. Now, above that, you look at innovators, people who are not only professionals, but they actually have a desire to create something new and experiment with new ideas, new devices, new methods. And that is a rare skill, we all agree. And finally, even if you're an innovator, you may or may not have the appetite to take personal, business, professional risk to go out and start an organization. So in my view, these are evolving skills. You start with employee. And all I'm really going to argue that as colleges, we have a minimum responsibility to produce professionals. We cannot just produce the next generation of employees. We have to produce professionals, and we have to produce, hopefully, innovators and entrepreneurs. And that's, we all agree, is evolving. Now, I'll just pass through this stuff very quickly because we talk about this all the time. You know, when we talk about skills of a professional, we talk about technology skills, domain skills, soft skills, sales and marketing skills. A well-rounded professional has all these things. And I don't want to spend time talking to you about it because entire day we've talked about some of these things. But interestingly enough, there are some things about professionals that we don't seem to understand and don't seem to take cognizance of. For example, if you look back now, a simple graph that I put together, it used to be a time then we rewarded professionals, rewarded employees as companies for people who were highly specialized and who were easy to manage. We liked people who would take orders as bosses of organizations, managers. We'd like to give orders to people, employees and professionals and say, you know, you be a specialist and you follow orders and you'll do really well. But the fact remains that today we are exactly the opposite. If I'm a new employee who goes to my boss too often to ask for simple questions and simple clarifications, I'll have a highly irritated boss. Because today we reward people who are self-managed, people who are multi-skilled, people who can take on multiple challenges. And I see this very often in today's professionals that they want to be very specialized. I want to do Java, I want to do this. But really, if you look at it, if people want to be software engineers, software testers, like Ram mentioned, you know, whole set of skills, but be versatile, be multi-skilled, and be self-managed. I think that's what is being rewarded today. This skill itself is a softer skill, but I think we need to teach people in our colleges that when you come to the professional workforce, it's very important to be multi-skilled and self-managed, not, you know, expecting your boss to be directly supervising you. So moving on, this is my favorite example. I give this a lot, so bear with me if it sounds a little entertaining. So when I look at people, professionals who join the workforce, I evaluate them in two dimensions. I'm sure my colleagues here will recognize this. So one dimension is performance. We always see that, you know, good performance, bad performance, and that's an easy one, right? We all agree that good and bad performance is easy to distinguish by and large. But just as when we buy a car or we buy a fridge, you know, we also look at things like maintenance factors, right? No one wants to buy a car which is going to spend half the time in the garage. True? Yes? Yeah, so we look at maintenance. So I think people also have maintenance factors. Some people are high maintenance. You know, they spend a lot of time complaining about things, whining about things like that. And some people are low maintenance, people who do their work quietly, do it really well, and don't impose themselves on others. So if you look at it, who do we reward today, right? First of all, if you look at this quadrant, low-performing people who are high maintenance, we call them very toxic. We don't want them in the organizations. And think of the number of people who are coming to the workforce today with very little skills and extremely high expectations of what the reward they should get, what promotion they should get. So I've called them the toxic category. You have to eliminate them from corporates as fast as possible if they're low-performing, high-maintenance people, okay? The second one I call the bronze category, which is people who are low on performance, but they're at least low on maintenance, right? They don't come and waste other people's time. They don't complain too much. They don't, you know, make life difficult for others. So they're acceptable at some level. Not great, but acceptable. The best people, of course, are high performance and what? Low maintenance, right? People who do great work and they don't waste other people's time, especially the managers and their colleagues. And then the most difficult category, we call them the high performing, high maintenance people. We need to have them, but it's not desirable. We'd like to change them. So this is another example where if you can train people to come out of into the workforce saying that you will be rewarded if you are a high-performing, low-maintenance professional, that'll be very good. So I'll now come to the very end of my point, which is that I think one observation I've made is that I think colleges and big companies have entered into kind of this alliance of placements where, you know, big companies are happy to go to certain colleges are happy to place people there, and by and large, there's a nice world of happy cohabitation where, you know, the top firms and top people, you know, colleges are kind of happy recruiting from each other. But the mid-level colleges are suffering, and mid-sized companies and smaller companies are really suffering because they can't get access to the best talent. And it turns out in every culture, every part of the world, small, medium companies always do more innovative work, right? Startups, in fact, we talked about this all day in the morning today as well. Startups have been becoming much more prominent in India. They've always been prominent in the US. And great innovation, great excitement, good work comes from the small, medium companies. So my point is that why can't we have a model where the mid-level colleges, which are otherwise struggling to place their people, have arrangements and nice innovation exchange platform with the middle and small companies do the most innovation. So you can actually bypass this rat race of trying to place people in big companies and actually collaborate with those companies, middle and small companies, which provide 60% of the workforce that is coming into the country. So in summary, what I'm proposing, innovation platform where on one side, medium-sized colleges can provide good infrastructure infrastructure, good formal education, incubation labs, and talent that exists. On the other side, we can bring together middle and small companies which have good industry content, can offer internships, employment. In fact, I know a lot of small, medium companies that are highly innovative, which have come to us in TalentSprint and said, why don't you help us build a network with certain colleges where we can do really exciting, innovative work? And doing cutting-edge projects, which we talked about earlier, which I think Ajay referred to, and mentors, which I think is the other thing that can help. So in summary then, I would say that creating innovation platforms that combine all these factors would be highly helpful. So in summary then, to end, let's redesign our aspirations. Let's foster a culture of innovation and entrepreneurship and get off this drug called large IT service companies. Teach your people not to be in that mode. SMEs carry out innovation, and then a lot of the jobs of the future will come from this sector, so let's focus on those small and medium companies. And let's most importantly encourage our graduates to take risks, become more entrepreneurial, and innovate. Thank you.